The beginning of a game, or any piece of entertainment, is rather crucial. With a game, I'd argue that the opening 15 to 60 minutes is the make or break period where you decide whether or not you're going to stick around for the preceding 5 to 50 hours. The first impression should establish at least one of the core hooks of the game, something that makes it stand out from the rest and worthy of your time. Days Gone has a bad beginning. The first impression I had of it was, uh-oh. It does a poor job of introducing the world, characters, or gameplay in an appealing or natural way. For me, a key factor in the analysis and critique of Days Gone is that it is a AAA Sony first-party game and thus open to being compared to the many phenomenal games Sony has published over the last 8 years or so. And when it comes to great beginnings of games, Sony's first party has done a lot of tremendous work. You have the intimate funeral that opens God of War, or the grand introduction into the strange world of Horizon Zero Dawn, or the exciting, right into the swinging action of Spider-Man. But no Sony game starts stronger than The Last of Us, and in terms of beginnings, there is no game Days Gone would like to be more than The Last of Us. What makes The Last of Us's beginning so strong is, well, a whole lot of things. Primarily, it takes its time but doesn't overstay its welcome. It clearly introduces the main character and his relationship to key other characters. It establishes tone, style, a few very basic gameplay elements, and builds out the world. It establishes an enormous amount in just 20 minutes. We meet Joel and Sarah, who are clearly father and daughter. A key storytelling device is introduced via the watch Sarah is giving Joel. The writing between the two is natural and comfortable and a little playful. It then moves into a basic introduction to the chaos that is about to unfold, thanks to the explosion witnessed by Sarah and then the neighbor Joel must shoot in front of her. Tommy, Joel's brother, is introduced, another important character. Then it's off on a car ride that continues to establish the chaos that is unfolding and provides a few key insights into how Joel thinks about survival. The car crashes, Joel protects Sarah, Tommy protects Joel and Sarah, and then potentially sacrifices himself for them. Joel and Sarah encounter the soldier, who reluctantly follows orders and shoots at Joel and Sarah, but then Tommy comes back to save the day, only for Sarah to die in Joel's arm. The tragedy that the whole story is based around is clear, and it's only been 14 minutes. The game then very smartly uses the opening credits as both welcome downtime to process all that has happened, but also uses voiceover to go over the very basics of the apocalypse occurring.
Panic spread worldwide after a leaked report from the World Health Organization showed that the latest vaccination tests have failed.
None of the info is very original or unexpected. We know how this happens and Naughty Dog very smartly brushes over it. But it also introduces the Firefly faction, the voice of their leader, and their core belief system. The last major thing is a 20-year time jump occurring, which allows Naughty Dog to do whatever they want to or need to with the world and have it feel natural. 20 years is a long time. All of that happens in less than 17 minutes with no loading screens or interruptions. It's an exceptional opening, and it's unreasonable to expect many other games to do an opening as well, but I have to compare it against Days Gone because the opening of Days Gone feels like such a disjointed, rushed ripoff of The Last of Us. We are immediately introduced to a town in some sort of chaos. We then get a tight shot of a woman in pain and two rough-looking guys tending to her. The first words spoken in the game, delivered quite unenthusiastically, are,
"She's burning up. The knife must have nicked her kidney or something. She's turning septic."
I have no idea who any of these people are, and it doesn't sound like the guy who just spoke is too concerned about the wounded woman. The man with the backwards-facing ball cap then says they need to get to a roof and flag down a helicopter. We're less than 1 minute into the game. We have technically been introduced to the player character and the two most important secondary characters of the game. But the game has not given us any names. We have no idea why the man in the ball cap cares about this woman, nor why should we even care about the woman. The game then fades to black, and then fades up, and the man in the ball cap and the wounded woman are suddenly on a rooftop where a helicopter is waiting. I have no idea how they got there, or how they knew a helicopter was there, or if they had any problems getting there. An apocalyptic event seems to be happening, so surely it wasn't easy. We finally learn the name of a character, O'Brien. He's this guy. He says there's only room for 2 people in the chopper, but there are 3 characters. Oh no. It's becoming clear that the man in the ball cap cares for the wounded woman, but we still don't know her name. The man in the ball cap has a really dumb neck tattoo that says Sarah, so maybe her name is Sarah? We don't know. The man in the ball cap then decides to stay with the other man named Boozer instead of leaving with the woman, even though by now it's clear that the man in the ball cap cares about the woman. I have no idea why the hell he chooses to stay with this dumb bald guy over the woman. Days Gone title card. It's been 3.5 minutes. After a nice long loading screen, we are told 2 years have passed. The 2 characters, one of whom we know is named Boozer, are now riding motorcycles in what looks like the Pacific Northwest. The 2 guys end up in a floaty-feeling bike chase after a man named Leon killed a woman named Alvarez. Another loading screen interrupts the transition from gameplay to cutscene and cutscene to gameplay. The bike chase turns into an on-foot hunt, where the player character is revealed to be an expert master tracker, and then he asks his friend Boozer how Boozer learned to track, even though Boozer is doing no tracking here. Leon shoots us, and a weird fade to black triggers a cutscene where Leon turns tail and runs. Another fade to black, and it's gameplay again, with Leon seemingly vanishing into thin air. The 2 then find Leon just standing there doing nothing until a fade to black triggers a cutscene again, where it's implied the main character has just shot Leon. Then we get what really seems like is going to be a moral choice where we must choose between shooting the wounded man or leaving him, only for the main character to just shoot him in the head. We head back to our bike, find out it's been ruined, so we jump on Boozer's bike and the 2 hit the road to find the parts for the bike. The 2 chat about characters and places and factions that I know nothing about. They then come across what is clearly an ambush, but they don't seem concerned, only for a surprise ambush to occur. We learn how to do the melee combat, you just spam R2. Then they come to a tunnel and the main character goes on foot to make sure the tunnel is clear for the bike and Boozer, who's just behind him. We're introduced to 2 of the zombie-like enemies named Freakers that run out of a hole in the wall. You just stand there and casually shoot them both from a good distance with your shotgun, only for the cutscene to have the main character be angrily beating one's head in with a shotgun? I don't know. It's been 18 minutes and we still don't know the name of the main character. I know that's an unnecessarily detailed breakdown, but those are all thoughts I had while playing the opening of Days Gone. I was confused and unsure of what the game was, who the characters are, the state of the world, or what the story was. At this point, I still don't know the name of the main character or the woman he cares for. I don't know that there has been an apocalypse or that the world has changed that much. 2 years isn't that long after all. And it's not even apparent that there are zombies in the game besides a fleeting reference to them until you just shoot 2 of them who shamble at you from a hole in the wall. In fact, 15 hours into the game, I'm still unclear on some key aspects. There's a line at the beginning where Boozer calls Sarah sister, and I presume that he is not using that literally, that he's not her sister, but I genuinely don't know for sure. It's entirely possible they are related. The relationship between Boozer and Sarah is still a question mark to me. 15 hours in, I still don't know who Deacon really is. He's the player character, by the way. The game seems to regard him as an anti-hero, ultimately a good guy, but I don't think he is. He's done a lot of genuinely horrible things for little reason, and the game has never turned a critical mirror on him. The opening of the game is made even stranger as you play further into the game because you actually revisit the opening later on. Several hours in, for no reason, you are presented with a flashback to the opening 5 minutes of the game, except it's edited slightly differently. We see a new scene or 2 added here and there. We see Sarah get stabbed, and that Deacon ran into some guy that he had to kill on their way to the rooftops, and that's it. There are maybe 3 new scenes added. The rest is presented exactly as it was for the first time. We learn absolutely nothing new. There wasn't some secret in the opener that was being kept. We're just presented with the opening of the game again for some reason. And the intro isn't even limited to those 20 minutes that I already covered. The intro actually rambles on for about another 20 or more minutes, never actually clearly ending. You eventually just find yourself several hours into Days Gone realizing, oh, I guess I'm several hours into Days Gone now. What's happening again? Those big Sony games I went over at the beginning of the game all went on to be exceptional games. You can have a fast punch in the gut like The Last of Us or a very slow burn like God of War. Both were effective at making me want to see more. The rambling, near incoherent intro of Days Gone made me stop playing after about an hour and just go to bed, confused and honestly unsure if I'd even play more than that first hour. That feeling of confusion is the core of Days Gone for me. I've played over 15 hours and it still feels like it hasn't gotten going or found its footing. I still feel unsure about what the game is or wants to be. The story and writing are boring and predictable and full of unlikable characters, especially Deacon, who is just a profoundly unlikable person. Most of the cutscenes and storywork just resorts to endless, unnecessary melodrama and confrontations. What little there is in the way of levity from the miserable assholes that litter this game comes from corny, out-of-place, extremely forced flashbacks, where we learn about how Deacon and Sarah met, none of which is compelling at all. The story also seems to be the thing Days Gone cares most about, as there's an utterly staggering amount of writing and dialogue and cutscenes here. It often feels like you are just doing one story mission after another, all of which feel the same and make the game feel 50 hours longer than it actually is. Overstuffing your game with mediocre writing and bad characters is a great way to make a game feel utterly exhausting. The story would be more easily digested if the gameplay was excellent, but it simply isn't. Gunplay and movement are sluggish and imprecise with mediocre enemy AI. Stealth is bog standard and overly slow and tedious. Combat is unsatisfying due to the aiming model, enemy movement, and frame rate. Freakers are a pain in the ass to fight because they are so hard to hit, while humans are a bore to fight because they all just stand there or run in a straight line at you. The only divergence from the on-foot combat is on-bike combat. Those sequences look bad, they feel bad, and are just no fun whatsoever. Thankfully, they're relatively few and far between. The open world has little to see or do or reasons to explore. There are apparently a lot of hordes around the map, massive hive mind collections of zombies, and a key selling point during Days Gone's E3 showings. After 15 hours, I've seen a horde twice. Both times they were just standing on the side of the road as I drove by. Both times all I did with the horde was drive by while thinking, oh look, those hordes are in the game after all. Their purpose still eludes me. Fighting them seems nearly impossible and a total waste of resources. They come up a lot in the story as this horrible, menacing threat, but they don't feel that way. I'm still waiting to see if they ever serve a purpose beyond being mildly impressive technology and a selling point they had to keep in the game. Every other part of Days Gone feels like it pulls from every single video game design trope we've had this generation, to the point where it feels like an AI was programmed to study other games and make the most video game-ass video game of this console generation. Things like overworld map, stealth mechanics, side third-person shooting, vehicle maintenance, Witcher vision, vehicle upgrades, camps, tailing missions, weapon degradation, escort missions, stamina bar missions, alchemy, weapon upgrades, crafting, skill tree, hunting, collectibles, base upgrading, bad boss fights, ammo sniper rifle sequence, 2 somber lyrical and music sequences, zombies. Days Gone was of course made by human beings, people who worked hard for years and years to bring a vision to life, and I genuinely don't ever enjoy speaking ill of games. The game of course has a vision and a desire to be a specific thing, but in practice it just never coalesces. So much of my time with it had me thinking, is this what this game is? I was confused from the get-go by Days Gone, and after 15 hours and having now given up on it, I leave it equally confused. Days Gone is a game that feels out of time, like it belongs in 2013 or even earlier, when open world games weren't so plentiful and offered such variety and quality, when The Walking Dead and Sons of Anarchy were big and popular shows. It's not a poorly made game by any means, no single part of it is a terrible dumpster fire. It's just that in the over 15 hours I've played, I never had any fun. At best, there would be moments where I felt nothing and my eyes glazed over as I checked off another story mission. At worst, I was actively frustrated. And now, after seeing the second map, passing the halfway point, seeing the story start to finally turn, I realized I just can't be bothered to continue. On its own, in a vacuum, Days Gone is fine. However, it's a major Sony first-party game, and that puts it on the same list as games like Uncharted, Spider-Man, Horizon, Bloodborne, or God of War, and in that light, Days Gone is thoroughly mediocre and uninspiring. Even if you disassociate it with great Sony games of late, open world games in general have taken huge strides forward this generation. Be it Zelda, The Witcher 3, MGS5, or even AC Origins, open world games have come a long ways. I'm not saying Days Gone needed to be revolutionary. There's nothing wrong with a familiar, comfy open world checklist game, but even those still offer something great or memorable. I understand why Sony put it out, and I know there are lots of people out there who probably like this game, and that's great. Seriously, genuinely, you like what you want to like, and don't let anyone else like me interfere with that enjoyment. It's just that, and I'm sorry to say it, but in a sea of great games this late into the generation, after so many standards were raised, the confused, the disjointed mediocrity of Days Gone does absolutely nothing for me.